nice things there.
Thank you, Matt.
You're welcome.
It's nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's all up to you now, John.
So,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't mean to press you, but there's only 5,000 people watching. I didn't, bad show up today.
Excellent. Well, hello everybody out there in cyber world, wherever you are. Really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to offer some of the ideas I have from my years of playing. And I really appreciate Matt Patellas and his wonderful online drum school, and him having me here. We go back a ways. I've done a few of these before. I'm happy to have Tim Shahady from Peisty, also a good friend, who's here with us, and Aubrey Carter, student of Matt's, and all of you wonderful people out there. So maybe want to start this with something that struck me the other day. I have, as Matt, you maybe have read on the sign for this class. This is really about becoming a well-rounded musician, and this is something I do quite a bit of teaching. And I'm an active player. Is mostly what I do, and it's something that I've thought about from my teachers. I've had many wonderful teachers, and one of the most important teachers in my life. I have a degree in classical percussion, and I went for 4 years on the urging of my junior high school teacher. He said to me, let me backtrack a little bit. I'd been studying, I was very lucky because, first of all, I started playing when I was 2 years old. Don't ask me why. I just came out of my mom and just started playing drums. Two big things which I think influenced a lot of people. I saw, I'm older than I look. I saw Ringo Starr live on Ed Sullivan's show with the Beatles, and I will never forget that experience. And it wasn't just the screaming fans. And I was already kind of listening to that, rock and roll music and had an affinity for it, but it was something. Ringo had this just joyous look on his face, sitting above the drums, and he just looked like he was having so much fun. That, and also my parents were very open-minded and listened to all kinds of music. They'd take us to Lincoln Center, they'd take us to Broadway shows, and we used to watch the Boston Pops Orchestra on PBS. Arthur Fiedler, famous conductor, and Fred Buda, the amazing drummer who was with them for probably 40 years. Same thing, like Ringo, playing with the symphony orchestra, but every time Fred Buda would play, his mouth wide open, like just digging in, and like, ah. And those two things, I think of it to this day. I'm about to turn 57, so we're talking about, what, 54 years ago. It's like that lightning bolt that hit me, even though I was into music, it's still with me today when I think about those two important elements. So, cut to the chase, come fourth grade, we had an opportunity in school to learn an instrument, and I wanted to play drums. Lucky me, the band director, Joe Vasili, who's still around, I was trying to get a hold of him actually recently. Joe Vasili was the band director at Limekiln Elementary School. Joe Vasili was a Juilliard percussion grad, so lucky me. My very first drum teacher, it was very strict. I mean, this guy, my image thinking back, he was a scary dude. He was a classical guy. It was just like, every little thing was like, no, do it right, real perfectionist. I go to junior high school, Pomona Junior High, and what do you think happens? It's unbelievable. My Danny Cicente was the band director there. Danny had gone to Manhattan School of Music to study percussion. So 2 in a row. He immediately became my amazing teacher. He had a percussion ensemble, which back then was unheard of. So when I was younger, I'd go to the concerts, I'd see the percussion ensemble. So I wanted to be in the percussion ensemble. It was like so much focus on drums and percussion. So Danny, I worked with him very hard. I was developing, very fast, playing all kinds of bands and, developing a lot of chops. I wanted to go to Berklee School of Music for college. He said to me, it's very clear you're going to be a professional musician. This is what you want to do. I can see that. He said, you have a lot together on the drum set. You need to go and study percussion. He was a failed professional musician. Nothing against him, but he gave it a try in New York City. He said, if you want to work in New York City, you need to be well-rounded, be able to play drum set, any style of music, classical, means timpani, xylophone, all that. So thanks to him, I got my butt kicked. I got into school purely on talent, but I could barely read treble and bass clef. And I had, in my freshman theory class, I had kids that had been playing Bach since they're like 12 years old. I could barely, I was literally, every good boy does fine. I could barely read, and I have, you know, these brainiacs around me. So, I kid you not, I had hair in college. It was a great experience, but I lost all my hair from the stress theory classes. It was brutal. It was brutal. But my mentor, Ray DeRoche, who's, you know, a seminal person in contemporary music percussion ensemble, New Jersey Percussion Ensemble, Paul Price student, anyone who studies classical music would know about these guys. Very important person. Because of Ray, I became a musician. I was a solid drummer, had a lot of chops, very good musical ears, was very open thanks to my parents and, you know, my environment. I was open to a lot of different kinds of music and playing a lot. But this is what I was getting to, is Ray would stop us all the time, whether we're playing Bach, cello suite on a marimba, we're playing some crazy 12-tone piece for a percussion ensemble, some wacky odd meter things, you know. We even played the Black Page percussion ensemble. No matter what it was, he would stop you at any moment and say, "What are you doing with that note?" What are you talking about? And his point was, you can't just play arbitrarily. Every note is important, okay? And, you know, I'm going to get to this a little bit more specifically and, you know, and talk about some ideas. So, the point is that, you know, music, art, a lot of people say, you know, it's an expression of life, you know, however you want to look at it. But, you know, ultimately, we want to get past the technique of the instrument, the basics, to be able to express ourselves, okay? And, you know, something I've thought about this, I talk about this with younger students, and I think it translates with anyone, is that, don't really think about it, but when we speak, we have a lot of inflection in what we do, based on the mood, based on the environment we're in. You know, if you're having a conversation with your significant other and your little infant baby is sleeping, you're going to talk really quietly, okay? If someone's in a lot of trouble and you want to wake them up, you're going to put something behind those words. You know, if you want to really tell someone you love them, you know, so all of this is what we do when we express the instrument. Now with drums, as you know, it's very complicated. There's a lot of gear involved. There's a lot of technique and coordination. It's, you know, it's mind-bending, but I'm not putting myself on a pedestal. I'm lucky to be a working musician and, you know, and relatively successful at that. I've had a long career, you know, right out of college. I got work and always working, but, you know, I pride myself on my musicianship thanks to my teachers, because he really opened up my eyes and my ears especially, about every single sound matters, okay? And so, the point about language is, and I'm going to start to demonstrate a little bit of this, you know, I wanted to mention something that, a little bit interesting thing that happened. I was playing with a Pops orchestra, Ocean City Pops, great orchestra, the other night, and I was coming home. I got gas, and gas station attendant looked at my car. I said, are those drums? I said, yeah. And he goes, yeah, I always wanted to play drums. And he said, are drums difficult? It's like an interesting question. It's like, how do we answer that? And so I thought about it for a second. I said, you know, I was just looking at him, and I said, you know, if you want to play in a band, he goes, I don't want to play in a band. I just want to play drums. I'm like, so just very, very simple thing I told him is that, you know, the whole purpose of playing an instrument ultimately is to have fun, you know, to express yourself. So, you know, with all the technical stuff I was talking about and things we can get into about, you know, being more musical as a drummer beyond the mechanics, it's about having fun. And I teach a little bit at this one school, and the very first day one of the teachers talked about this, and she said, I don't want, it sounded corny. She said, I don't want any of you teachers to forget about love. And what she was saying is that, you know, we get very strict with our students, like do this, do that, hold the stick this way, hold the stick that way, make sure you don't rush, you know, make sure you play those 8 notes evenly, you know. That feel on that you know, that funk tune is bad. But all that stuff is important, but when push comes to shove, when you get into your garage playing with your friends, or they come over to jam, or you're playing at a concert, there you are, you know, and the audience, they don't know about that stuff. They don't care how you're holding your sticks. They don't care that your 16th note ghost notes were uneven, or that, you know, your bass drum, they don't like, you're using a Remo pinstripe in your bass drum. They hate the sound. They don't care about that. They just want to enjoy. So I think, you know, it's so getting back to what I mentioned to this gas station attendant is, I said to him, you know what? if you want to play drums, get a drum set and just have fun. I said, because you give an example, and what could be more fun than this? Unfortunately, we don't have playback, but I think a lot of you people know this song, is Back in Black by AC/DC. So Tim is going to sing along for us, okay?
All right.
So, sure many of you know this song, and those that don't, just boom bap, boom bap. But the point is, I could play that song any time of day, and it's so much fun. I don't even have the music on, and just thinking about it just brings so much joy. You know, it's a cathartic thing. The ability to just get a sound, play a beat, learn how to play a couple of different rhythms, figure out the basic mechanics of the drum set, and just have fun. Okay, this is really what it's about. So, you know, with that said, you know, again, no matter what you're doing, I know everyone has their levels of frustration. You know, Matt and I, Matt has these wonderful Facebook drumming groups, the Art of Drumming, and, you know, I get very involved with the discussions there. There's a lot of drummers around the world who get frustrated. You know, my left hand is really slow. I can't do this, I can't do that. You know, you just have to be patient with playing the drum set. There's no shortcuts, and you know, just to be able to play the instrument, to be able to play consistently and evenly, it takes hard work. You have to just stick with it on a regular basis. You have to practice. Some people they care not to practice. They just want to play, and that's fine. There are a lot of great bands who, if you listen to their early records, they weren't so good in the beginning, and they just got better from playing. You know, it's I'm not here to advocate that you have to go to music school and you have to study timpani and blah blah blah, but there's certainly a level of work. It's a physical instrument. You know, there's aspects of that where, you know, if your feet don't work, there's just flexibility issues. You know, you have to just get our tendons aren't designed to play bass drum pedals or play double bass or, you know, double strokes and all that kind of stuff. Neither are our hands. You have to work out the tendon issues and stretch your body and get used to that, besides the muscle memory. So, you know, there's just hard work involved. But I want to talk about, I want to talk about how to become more musical. And, you know, I'll get a little bit more into the things that I do. But as you can tell a little bit from my solo, and now I speak many, many musical languages, and you know, on any given day, I could be learning, you know, so many different styles of music, and each time I'm getting better at speaking that language, at the nuances of that language. You know, I've been playing a long time, so I don't have to think about the mechanics as much, but for instance, I'm doing a rare heavy metal funk gig on Friday. A fantastic band a friend asked me to join. I grew up, this is the music, I played a lot of this in high school, playing double bass drum and hard rock and music, but it's such great music. As soon as I heard it, I was blown away. I'm going to play something from that later on. So I had to get back into that, you know, and I immediately reached for my Richie Blackmore, the Richie Blackmore Dio and the Ronnie James Dio and Cozy Powell record, you know, Kill the King, all these great tunes from back then, you know, going to the roots of some of this, some of the best, and you know, just get better at speaking that language again. So today I just want to say I'm not here to teach you how to play different styles of music, but I want to give you some concepts and ideas of how to approach whatever you're playing and think about every little note and think about the nuance. So starting with this aspect of language, when we speak, we don't speak like this. Hello, Matt, how are you? Thank you for having me. I really like you. You are a good guy. Nobody speaks that way. And, you know, when someone's sort of awkward and they speak to you that way, you're like, Even if you don't know them, you're like, what's wrong with this person? Okay? Some people are very shy. They speak very, very, I really like playing the drums. It's really fun. And other people are extremely confident, and drums are great, and you're going to play the drums. So think about this when you're playing, okay? And the expression, okay? And here's some like very simple steps. I'm going to go through some different styles of music and demonstrate this, and you know, you can do the research on your own and think about what are the aspects of this music that make it sound the way it does, and give it that lilt, give it that sound, give it the dialect that they're speaking that. You can do that research. But to start with, go to like something like Back in Black, okay? So when you're starting to learn, you want to do everything evenly. A good teacher will tell you no accents, paradiddles. You're trying to play everything even, okay? You're washing your hands, you know. So as far as approaching a song on the drum set, okay, that's the next aspect, is if you're reading or you're learning by ear, again, a basic rock beat. Okay? You're trying to play everything even. So sometimes that's appropriate. Okay, there's different levels. When you're playing jazz, things are small. Okay, when you're playing, I'm doing this heavy metal gig. There's nuance and there's tons of feel with this band, but everything is like, you know, rip roaring, loud. But it's not. None of this is monotone. Even a beat like Back in Black. Is that Phil Rudd playing on that track? Yeah, so Phil Rudd is genius. It sounds like he's just playing 1, 3, 2, and 4, like big deal. Not so easy. If any of you have tried to play Back in Black for the first time with a band, it's like, yeah, I'm playing it right. It doesn't feel anything like that, okay? It's because however he goes about it, everyone's got a different approach. He's placing every one of those notes in between what's going on. Okay, also, he's not playing everything. You know, for instance, the guitar riff. Okay, so what you can think about, whether you're trying to duplicate someone's part or you're coming up with your own, is to sing the part. This is something Matt had mentioned, my teacher Gary Chester. I studied directly with him. And one big aspect of what Gary talked about is singing. Okay, this is not a new concept. They do this, especially in the Indian culture. You know, if you can sing it, you can play it. So, first step, if you want to develop some more expression in your playing, is figure out the rhythm. Okay? So, for instance, that guitar riff, ba da 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 da. 3, 4, 1. Okay, that's the rhythm straight across. Expression, no accents, okay? But when I'm talking about singing is to sing the guitar part, okay? You know what the rhythm is for the drums. So the guitar goes ba-do, 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 ba-do. So if you notice, there's loud and soft notes. Ba-do, 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 ba-do. Okay, so what Phil Rudd did is he orchestrated it. It could be done anyway. If it was your song, you could experiment at home or do it right now. That was his decision. It worked with the phrasing of the guitar, so he's playing with them. Okay. You notice, you know, if I play on these other surfaces, I could probably come up with a part that would work. There's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, the point is that if you sing a line that's being played, and this was Gary's system also, is it's going to enable you to figure out much quicker what's going to fit, okay? Loud, soft, short, long, okay? and think about those sounds. You may not be able to express what that is, short, long, but you're emulating on the kit. Ba-do, 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 ba-do. Okay, so, you know, that's just one aspect. And then, just on the, as far as a basic beat goes, in rock music, you know, I've heard people talk about this difference between rock and swing. Is rock, a feel for rock is sort of like straight up and down. Okay? You want to get like the rock feel. Okay? So as opposed to swing, which is, it swings. I mean, we'll talk about some aspects of that too. It makes it swing, but it's a little bit a back and forth feel. Okay? I'm sure there's some big band that's played Back in Black as a swing tune. It could work. But, so, you know, you think about these things too. This is a rock tune. You know, what makes it rock? Okay? And, you know, more importantly is getting back to this concept of my college teacher of what are you doing with that note, is how does the part you're playing connect with the music around you, okay? So, you know, we have to perfect our parts, you know, and learn the basic, you know, the basic pattern. Maybe that's something we came up with or something we learned off the record you want to play. Okay. So of course you want to get it all even so you understand the rhythm so it's solid. Okay. When you're solid, the rest of the band's going to be solid. Okay. Then you start to work on fitting that in. Sometimes it means taking notes out depending on what's going on around you with the music. Okay. The first person that we always need to connect with, and some people may disagree with this, but you guys could tell me what you think. I think the bass player is the first person that we have to connect with. You know, as far as like the foundation of the house, we have to create a foundation for the band to walk on, and you know, we have to be locked with the bass player first. You know, different styles of music have different degrees of that, but you know, something like what I was just playing, you know, or you might play all the notes with the bass player. Sometimes it's not necessary, okay? This happens a lot, and I've had band members mention this, is, you know, all that stuff works and propels the thing, it's really energetic, it feels great and solid, but bass players play all those notes. You got a rhythm guitar player going, okay? Like Steve Jordan or Steve Gadd, you know, some of these amazing players who fit in any situation, they actually play a lot less because they're listening. I had a memorable conversation with Steve Gadd after a gig. A fellow drummer and I were picking his brain about playing, and you know, he said his concept is basically, and he said, you know, how about when you play a song, how about playing under the band, quieter than the band, and not playing any fills for a while, and just listening, okay? And at the right possible moment, play something that really matters, you know, and it's really his concept, you know, and I also said, I'm not trying to call attention to myself, you know. He has such a great, amazing touch and open ears that he can really draw attention to himself, but that's because he's really listening, okay? So, with that said, you know, sometimes you're figuring out parts. It might be more supportive to take notes out. Okay? Maybe they need this hi-hat part, for instance. something I call common denominator. There's always been a thing when with especially an original band is you know, it can be frustrating when someone brings in a song and you're trying to find parts, and it can take a week or more before you find stuff that really works, and you're racking your brain. And so I came up with this thing called common denominator, which is, if say that's the bass line, boom, doo da, boom, ba-dum, boom, ba-dum, doo da, boom, ba-dum. The more I listen to that, it's like, what is the common denominator? What are the most important notes that are going to support that rhythm without me playing every single note and driving the time down everybody's throat? So it just feels good, and you're just giving them a real solid foundation. Boom, boom, ba-dum, boom, ba-dum, that, boom, ba-dum, boom, ba-dum, that, boom, ba-dum. You try it. It might work, it may not, you know. Okay, 4/4 music, the majority of pop and rock music is in 4/4 common time, okay? And most of the time, you have 4 or 8 bar phrases, okay? So another aspect to think about when you're listening and figuring out music is, aside from figuring out what they're playing, is figure out the phrases, okay? Something like this, okay? Maybe you want to take some notes out, but you can take a loop, boom, boo-da, boom, ba-dum, boom, ba-doo, that's happening over and over again, and you can create a 4-bar phrase, okay? So maybe the first time you take out one note, the second time you add some notes, okay? And so what you're doing is like, it makes everything bigger, okay? Rather than everyone playing, all the guitars are playing 16th notes, the bass and bass drum are playing, you know, that works sometimes, but you can make the band sound so much bigger, especially like a trio or a quartet. If everybody just supports with different elements, and together you make this rhythm. You're all putting this rhythm together. If your time is really solid and you're really listening deeply, you know what you're doing with every note, then all of a sudden the band is really going to come to life. You know, so this very simple wisdom that Steve Gadd, he's actually one of my all-time heroes. I mean, I can't even tell you how much that guy has influenced me, and I'm sure many of you too. But you know, this is a wonderful thing that he said to us, is that, you know, he said a lot of the drummers he hears, first song into the set, they throw everything they have at the audience, loud as they can, is everything. It's like, you know, it's too much. It's too much, and also, if you're playing a lot, you can't. How are you going to listen? You know. You really have to do your homework. You get past the parts. You really have to study the music. And what's really going to help you in any musical situation is if you really study the music, you understand the form.
We got some questions.
So, I'm glad to hear we have some questions. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. So what do we got?
Well, first off, Thomas Vicella, you know him?
Yes, I do. Hello, Tom.
He says hello. Okay. And Marcel Bizomoni or something, I apologize if that's incorrect. Basically, the question is what basically you're covering. And what he's just concerned about a lot of drummers playing not to the song, but displaying all their chops and overplaying and not making the tune sound musical and make it happen for the remainder of the conversation of the band, of the musicians in the band. So his question is, you know, like, and there's another question that he has, the guitar riff from the song. It's a specific riff. Are you locked into just playing one thing, or can you be creative with another thing? Well,
there's no rules, okay? I mean, there's different aspects. You know, I was talking, give an example of Back in Black, okay? You know, in some cases, you're trying to learn exactly what the drummer's playing, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, that's actually a great thing to transcribe or listen by ear, by writing things down to figure out exactly what the drummer's doing. But what's important, as I'm talking about, is beyond the notes and knowing exactly what cymbals and drums he's playing on, is why is he doing that? Okay, why did he make that choice? Okay, and the way you find that out is to notice what's going on musically. You have to study beyond the drums. How does that cymbal crash support what's going on? You know, how does that tom fill relate? Does it fit in between the riff that's going on? Does it play in unison? Does it relate to the bass drum pattern. So there's no rhyme or reason, and you can go online and see that on YouTube. There's great things. There was a thing with the great studio drummer Jeff Porcaro talking about the song FM. It was a hit. Was it Donald Fagen or was it Steely Dan?
Steely Dan.
Steely Dan, FM. Okay, very simple tune. Okay, but he talked about some of the different things that he tested to see what would make the tune work. It's a very simple tune, but you know that's why he worked as much as he did, because he put that much care into finding parts that worked and connected and brought the song to life, breathed life into the music. That's what's the most important. And I really appreciate you bringing that up, because you know far too drummers play without listening, and you know they spend a lot of time developing chops and licks, and then they're, you know, understandably they want to play, but you know it's not always a solo. Every note has to matter, and every part has to connect with the music you're playing. And it's up to you to decide, and up to the band, and you have to be open. People might say, I don't like that, doesn't work. You know, you have to try to be open-minded and say, all right, how about this, and try different things and talk about it, you know, and you know, record yourself. And you know, listen back as a band, and you know, you can see what works and what doesn't, and over time you'll get better at that. So, yeah. Some other questions?
No, that's it. He said thank you.
Sure.
That's what he wanted to know.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, John.
Okay.
Keep you continue with your magnificent presentation. I'm really enjoying this right now.
Excellent. Excellent. So, do you, any of you guys have any questions at all?
You know, John, one thing that's funny, you always hear people making comments about we drummers, you know, needing to like hold it back some, hold it together. You know, I've been in several instances where I've been on a gig with a band, and the guitar player and the bass player, for instance, they'll be having like a battle of licks out, and you're just trying to hold them back, you know, keep it together, bring it down, lock it in a pocket, you know, and it's just like they're wanting to see who can top the other, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's really, and it's, you know, drummers are not the only ones that do this, and, you know, the thing is, you know, Peter Erskine has mentioned this in master classes a lot. He said, you know, to talk about, you know, say, to talk about music is like to dance about architecture, you know. But, you know, there's some aspect to that, but the thing is, you really do need to talk. When you're in a band situation, whether it's a, you know, one-off gig where you're just sitting in with the band for the first time, or you're in a band, you have to talk about stuff, you know. And it's music is communication, it's a language, and, you know, you may not be your best friends, but you're having a dialogue, you know. And there has to, you know, how many times have you been in a conversation with the kind of person who you can't get a word in. They don't shut up, you know, and that's the equivalent in a band situation like that, where people are not, they're playing on top of the music, you know. They have a great time, you know, maybe they sing in tune, or they play in tune, they have all these chops, and they know how to fit it in, but they're not having a conversation. They're just talking a lot.
Good way to put it.
So I think you really have to talk about this with the band and say, you know, this is, you know, I don't feel like the pocket's good here, and you know, you have to be diplomatic about it, and it's, you know, it's not an easy thing, and if it continues, then, you know, it's probably better to play with people that want to just play and listen and you know, have a conversation. You know, it's you know, you hang out with friends who you want to talk to, and they're going to listen to you, and you know, some of them you can confide in, whatever. It's all levels of that, but I think ultimately in a musical situation, that's what you want. So any other questions?
Not right now.
Yeah.
If you want to if you're finished with that, I mean, you want to get to these pictures if you'd like.
Yeah.
It's up to you, whenever you
Okay.
want, John.
Yeah. So
you have all the time in the world.
yeah. So you know, we had just a little background of, you know, about what I did. I talked about my. I sent some pictures with Matt, and you know, I've got a very interesting. I call it a gumbo life. Just in the last few weeks alone has been pretty diverse gigs that I've been covering. I make my living mostly playing Broadway shows. I just finished 11 years with Jersey Boys, playing Fiddler on the Roof, Cats, Saturday Night Fever. I was a timpanist at Saturday Night Fever and also subbed for the drummer Chris Parker there. I'm getting ready to sub a brand new hit show right now. I'm learning that. I probably played about 20 different shows. In the Heights, which is a heavy Afro-Cuban show, and Les Miserables, which is very, very heavy percussion. You know, so you know, doing all that kind of stuff, and that's really been the core of my career. But I played a bunch with the Ocean City Pops recently. We just backed the star of Phantom of the Opera on Broadway, Hugh Panaro, and on that show we were playing a lot of Broadway show tunes. We did a Journey tune. The week before that, we did a tribute to Ella Fitzgerald. It was all these Sammy Nestico arrangements. Sammy wrote charts for the Basie Band. This was like hard swinging big band stuff. Beginning of the summer, I did a show with them where with Rob Evans, great singer Rob Evans, who sings with the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, an amazing rock singer. He was also a Phantom on Broadway and Les Mis, amazing singer. With that show, we were doing classic rock and you know, everything from Aerosmith, Led Zeppelin, AC/DC, plus you know, disco and funk kind of stuff. Out of the blue, I got a call from a friend, an old friend, and as I mentioned, I'm playing with this amazing band called Badass Beauty. Completely out of the blue, I heard the music and flipped out. It's hard rock, funk, with three amazing singers up front, real sort of gospel bass. It's very interesting, kind of like Living Colour meets Fishbone, and you know, and a little bit of Jimi Hendrix kind of thing in there, like amazing. I'm playing percussion on Saturday with a New Orleans funk and soul band, an 11-piece band with horns called Brother Josephus. I play drums with them a lot. This time I'm playing percussion. And, you know, we do a lot of second line stuff and then a whole bunch of funk and soul. I played timpani at Alice Tully Hall, Lincoln Center. So, I mean, I'm just constantly, you know, changing hats, as we say. So, as I said before, what I love about this is, first of all, I just love all kinds of music, and I love expressing myself on the instrument. And as I've always done, I just do research, you know. Learning musical styles is really like a language. And so, you know, you go to a country for the first time, you learn how to like order a beer. You know, or say thank you, excuse me, you know. You get a guidebook, maybe next time you go back, you study a little bit more. So, you know, every time, you know, it's a little easier with drums than, you know, saxophone or guitar. You know, you could sort of fake your way through a lot of gigs, in a sense, you know, if you got good time and good feel. But, you know, what my approach is to immerse myself in that language, you know. I've always listened to a lot of hard rock and classic rock and stuff, and you know, but when I got called for this gig, I hadn't played double bass drum in a long time. I was surprised I still had, you know, enough chops to pull it off, and haven't been playing really hard-hitting music. I just played that almost Count Basie charts with the Ocean City Pops, and suddenly I'm like, you know, blowing out my windows and my neighbors. But as I said, you know, I broke out my Dio records and some of the, you know, some old Led Zeppelin stuff, and you know, trying to research some of the great double bass drum players, and you know, and stuff that related to that music. And each time I play these styles, I'm not just learning the music. I immerse myself in that music itself. So you know, to me, I've always wanted to be a world musician. You know, I play a lot of world music. I got deeply into Brazilian music in the '90s. I was playing some of that before. I adore that music. You know, I play quite a lot of jazz, and rock and roll and funk. And you know, to me, it's just good music. You know what it's about, and you know, and I want to just be able to travel to those countries, and really enjoy it. So
we have more questions coming through the toll.
Sure, I'd love to.
First, let me say, was it Thomas? One that has a question.
Yes.
And I see how you covered this. When you're playing a show, do you adjust any kind of volume or any kind of playing, or does the sound tech take care of that for you?
Well, it's a tricky thing because I don't, you know, some of you people aren't aware of what Broadway has become. in one aspect, let me just say, it's at the highest level it's ever been. I feel really lucky to be included in that scene. I toured out of college for a long time playing Broadway shows on tour, and I broke into the Broadway scene in 1999. And the fact that I'm there, because the point is that studio work is completely dried up. So I'm getting ready to sub for the great Buddy Williams, who, if you don't know him, look him up. He's one of the all-time great studio drummers, R&B and soul and funk, and just amazing player. And you know, the fact that the studio drummer's playing Broadway is you know, kind of mind-blowing. But you know, the fact is that that's the only gig left in town, so it's at a very high level. So I'm going to cut to the chase. I subbed for a lot of shows. I mean, the last 20 years, I've you know, that last 20 shows, only one of those was my own. The rest I've been subbing. So you go in like kind of like a cover band gig. Right now, the show I'm doing is incredibly simple, okay? But I've spent weeks transcribing every single note that he's playing for the show. Exactly which part of the stick he's hitting on the cymbal, okay? I set up my drums, took pictures exactly like his. I tried to tune my drums at home so they're like his, you know, all the angles, everything, okay? Which includes the volume, okay? That's a difficult thing because when you go in, every time you go in to play, first of all, you have to expect it to sound exactly like him, and you got to make it feel like him. The pedals are different, the cymbals are different. I play Heisty cymbals, he's got Zildjian, he's got Yamaha drums different than mine. So the first couple of shows, even though I know the music, it's going to take a while. And the conductors don't have time to worry about that. So it's tough. And to answer your question in a long-winded way, you're expected, for the most part, in certain degrees, to volume-wise, you've got to match that. And it's up to you to figure that out. It's not easy. I subbed for the great Cubby O'Brien, the Mouseketeer, some of you might know, an amazing show drummer. I subbed Gypsy for him. Incredibly powerful player. And the very first note of the overture in my first show, I hit the cymbal so loud the conductor almost like fell out of the podium. Because to me, when I was sitting there watching Cubby play, and his headphones were so loud, it was super loud. So I came in the very first thing like Lars Ulrich. It's Gypsy. I mean, it's, you know. It's a 2-beat kind of show. This is big band stuff, but he's aggressive compared to most people. But I was like, the conductor was laughing. He was like, whoa, 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 you know. So, you know, some of that's a learning curve because you're playing on someone else's gear. So, you know, that's the hardest thing. But, you know, and I've had sound people. I was just subbing a fiddle on the roof, and there was some stuff I had to play on the tubular bells, the chimes, and the sound man said, "Sounds great. You know, you actually don't play as loud as a regular drummer. That's cool. It's fine. But I need you to play the chimes louder." You know, and when I played it in the Heights, the same thing. You know, Andres Ferraro, who's an amazing drummer, Andres Pachter Ferraro, who's a drummer at Hamilton now, incredibly powerful, virtuosic drummer. No way you know, they let us play his show the way we played it. But, you know, certain things, the sound man would come down and say, you know, could you play the bass drum a little harder? You know, he had his bass drums, like, you know, his pedals, his bass drums were just tuned much differently than mine. So it was hard for me. It was an aggressive show, but he's like, you need to play the bass drums harder. So, you know, you just have to adjust. Sorry for such a long answer, but, you know, it's not an easy thing. And you may not like Broadway. If you have an opportunity to go see a Broadway show, no matter what it is. It's the best of the best for playing Broadway now. It could be the corniest music, and it's played at such a high level, and just, it's a thing of beauty. I mean, the way Buddy is playing this classical show, it blows my mind. You know, he's playing with George Benson and Manhattan Transfer and Tanya Maria, and then to hear him play beautifully, this Dixieland kind of stuff and 2-beat, I mean, just perfectly for the style. It's mind-blowing, a true professional, a really great musician. You know, and that's what it's about. He got there, saw that's the language he had to speak, and he's not going to try to lay on some funk chops and you know, it's not what it's about. You know, he's speaking the language, you know, that's required. So, yeah.
Well, we have one more question and
sure.
one more display, I guess. Let's take the question first.
Okay.
In playing a long-run show, do drum percussion parts evolve to some extent over time?
Not so much. There's what's called a workshop process for every single show. No matter what the show is, it starts out in a rehearsal studio with no sets, actors have scripts, maybe piano and drums, and pretty much you're given just a piano score. And you actually write the drum book, okay? And you come up with the parts, okay? So this might take 3 weeks or a month. Sometimes it takes several workshops over several years. The hit show Hairspray took, I don't know, over 8 years. In the Heights took like 7 years to develop, maybe 9 years before it even got to Broadway. So it goes through processes, but by the time they have, then when it hits Broadway, they have a preview period for maybe 3 weeks. Then it's called frozen. Okay, that means nothing's changed, and they're not going to change anything. So we're talking about very, very small degrees. Once in a while, after a new star might come in, they might bring in a new tune, or they might cut out a few measures, but it's not really about expressing yourself. You know, you're going to see a Broadway show, you listen to them, and it's played at a high level and really expressive, but the challenge is you have to play the same thing night after night consistently. That's the challenge, and make it sound like the audience is hearing it for the first time. A long-running show, that's very, very hard, you know. And so, you know, within degrees, people, you'll sort of sneak things in. On some long-running shows, I was doing West Side Story in Europe, and people laugh. I mean, this is a classic, sort of jazz, classical mix, an amazing show, but I was getting bored, so I said, you know what, I'm gonna bring my double pedal in, I'm gonna find one spot in the show to play double pedal. And it was just like a couple of notes, but it was just like I was just trying to force my brain to just find a little small pockets to improvise. Or, you might change up. Some little kind of thing might shift here and there, but it's a very subtle thing. We call it under the radar. I've gone in. I remember going in the Heights, and I'd see notes the conductor gave Andres. He's an amazing drummer. He's like, you can't play a fill there if someone's singing. It's not about you. You have to really, it's about being supportive, and that's a great lesson about playing shows, is really, sometimes you've got to play really aggressive music. It can be like a rock feel, but you've got to play. You got to play like super, super light, or you might. I've done this in workshops where you end up playing the whole show like this, and it's still too loud because you're in this echoey, studio. So all these things are really great lessons as opposed to, oh man, this sucks, this just doesn't rock. You can have an attitude about it, or else. Another thing is most drummers do not practice playing soft. So I urge you, you're developing strength and stamina and speed. That's fantastic. Practice playing softly, And a good way to do this is put music on. With headphones, your drums, it's never going to be loud enough. Okay, don't blow your ears out. Put it at the volume it's at, and then try to play along with energy. Okay, so you can hear the music. Okay, it's a great lesson. It's going to be a challenge, but work on that. You get all your levels, all your stick levels lower, your bass drum pedal closer to the beater, and learn how to play soft, because that's going to enable you to have a lot more nuance in your playing. Play. I talked about comes from being able to play super soft, be able to control, have just as much control at this level, very close to the drum, and soft. Soft. Practice when somebody's sleeping. Like all these things are great, great, great. so many drummers can play fast and loud. You know, learn to play super slow and super soft. You know, any style of music. And it can be jazz, which is, you know, tends to be smaller, things smaller and lighter. You know, or rock, or funk. You know. Another thing I've talked about, as I did a clinic a while back, is tools. Think about what you're playing with. Okay. I tried to make a switch earlier when I went to jazz. I want to thank Vader Percussion. I've been a Vader artist for a long, long time. I love their sticks and mallets. Okay, discovered these Fusion acorn sticks. They're beautiful. I was using the Fusion, which is a barrel tip, for a long, long time, which I liked. And then they sent me these acorn tips, and the sound of the cymbals is just wonderful. But they're heavy. They're pretty meaty sticks. And I also discovered these Sweet Ride sticks, which I like to use for jazz. Okay, and so depending on what you use, a bigger stick is going to bring out more bottom, more fundamental from a drum or a cymbal. Okay, these Sweet Ride. Okay, it's going to make it easier to play softer with these sticks. You're going to be playing jazz. Another question?
No, request.
Yes.
I think Marcel, he's from, I think, South America.
Okay.
And he wants to know, because you're so versatile, he wants to know what's one of your favorite Latin rhythms to do?
The Baião.
Okay.
Okay, it's a Brazilian rhythm. I was playing it earlier. It's probably one of my I adore Brazilian music. Absolutely adore it. I played in a Brazilian percussion ensemble in the 90s for a long, long time called Sambanditos with one of my teachers, Ken Denard, Amir Ziv, Tomar Tsur, probably Peter Lewis, Mark Coppell, wonderful, wonderful friends. And then I started from that, you know, I met some guys, Sergio Brandao and Serginho, started to play a little bit of Via Brazil, some Brazilian jazz. And that's a Baião. And also what's beautiful is you realize, if you start to study a little bit, you realize that the link to a lot of this music, which is a wonderful thing to do as you explore, is try to notice the similarities. Okay. I was once walking around the Garment District, maybe a little further up. Where's the Pan Am building? Up by the Pan Am building. Anyway, I don't know what that area is called. I was walking by and I heard a Brazilian percussion ensemble. Many people have probably seen Rio de Janeiro Carnival. They have these 100-piece, 200-piece percussion bands. Okay, they play batucada. Okay, they've got the surdo, the big bass drums. Okay, they've got probably 50 of these. They've got guys hanging snare drums on their neck. The leader plays what's called a hepiki. It looks like it's kind of like a timbali, and they lead the group. Okay, these groups will blow your mind. Look up Carnival in Rio and see these bands. They're 100 to 200-piece percussion bands. You got the go-go bells going, okay, and unbelievable sound. And this is that group I played in for a long time. I played the snare drum and the surdo a lot in these groups, okay. And basically, in samba music, the drum set was not a part of the traditional music, okay? This came later on, okay? Basically, the drum set is imitating the sounds of the percussion ensemble. Same thing with Afro-Cuban music. Like, there's no drum set in salsa, or you know, this came later. Basically, the drum set is imitating the sounds of the Afro-Cuban percussion ensemble. So, in the foundation of samba, this is what they call the surdo, these giant bass drums that they play, and this. Okay. Also, I'm not very good at this instrument, but they have a tambourine they call a pandero. Okay? Unbelievable instrument. Another thing, go on YouTube and look up pandero players, because some of these guys, a very close friend of mine, Mario Pietro Monaco, in New York for a long, long time. This guy is like the Dennis Chambers of Pandero. Unbelievable. But on this one little instrument, they imitate the entire percussion ensemble. I can't do it fast. Those are the surdo. Okay, I'm not very good at this. This is not even a real Pandero, but, you know, it's sort of imitating the entire percussion ensemble here, okay? So, you've probably heard these sounds a lot. What drum set players do a lot is they imitate the pandero sounds with these little hi-hat accents. Okay, also, they have tuned bass drums that sound something like this. Okay, so I studied with Fonseca has a great book called Brazilian Rhythms for the Drum Set. If you're interested in this music, the Drummers Collective Publications has it out. Brazilian Rhythms for the Drum Set by Duduca de Fonseca. He's the drummer, the Trio de Paz. And he breaks it down. He shows you how the rhythms from the percussion ensemble are now spread out on the drum set. And you can play a batucada. A lot of the rhythms that were modern, the rhythms that we play, aside from, jazz kind of derived, rock and roll kind of came out of jazz, and, and there's aspects of the marching band. It's important to sort of like look into the roots of this stuff as you go along, and you start to see how all this music relates. Many of you know how jazz started is, they still do it in New Orleans, is they have parades, and in order to celebrate the life, they have a parade of music. The drummers are behind the trumpets in the second line, and the funeral, they play a rhythm like this. I'm not a historian, but a drummer in New Orleans, once the cymbals were invented, started to play that rhythm here. Sudden, I'm not sure if it was Baby Dodds. I don't know historically. Maybe you guys know who the first one to do that was. Do you know, Matt? Who started? Who the first person to transfer that New Orleans rhythm to the cymbal? Was it Baby Dodds or was it?
I think it was Baby Dodds.
Yeah.
I think so.
Anyway, it derived from the marching band, okay? The drum set came from the marching band. In Chicago, maybe, I don't know, 100 years ago or so, in the summertime, people used to, like, after work, used to sit in the park and have, you know, just listen to music. So they want to hear a groovy marching band. Yeah, man, let's dance to a marching band. But the only guys that couldn't sit down, everyone sat a seat, but the bloody drum section had to stand up on a hot day.
So that's why they didn't turn it into a drum set.
So some genius, I'd love to know the guy's name, because and it's amazing, if you see the original patent of the bass drum pedal, it looks exactly, we got this beautiful DW9000, thank you DW, another sponsor of mine. DW9000 looks very much like the pedal from 100 years ago. So some genius developed this pedal, bass drums on the floor, put the snare drum on a stand, so now he put a couple of guys out of work, but he could sit down. Much later on the hi-hat, because back then they had the low sock, which was, you know, the cymbal was way down here. But, you know, basically the drum set, the invention of the drum set enabled, you know, somebody to imitate a percussion ensemble or fill in the parts. So with that said, as I showed you with the Brazilian stuff, and you can see in Duduca's book, he breaks it down. Trying to think the gentleman's name. There's another gentleman who played with Paquito that, you know, basically, if you know the roots of the music you're playing, it's really going to inform what you're doing a lot more. It's going to have more power, you know, than just listening to a Motley Crue record, you know. You know, Tommy Lee's a great drummer, but, you know, go back even further. You know, where are the roots of this music? You know, and how do these things relate to each other? You know, and you know, what I was getting to before is I was walking around the city and I went by this, what looked like an African artifacts store, with masks and all kinds of knickknacks and drums, and I'm hearing Brazilian music. I'm hearing a Brazilian percussion ensemble, and I walk in and I'm like totally confused. I see this African guy and this, like, you know, and this dashiki and this, and I'm like, what part of Brazil is this from? He goes, that's not Brazilian music. I don't even know what it was from. There's some African, traditional African music. It sounded exactly like batucada. But that's because, you know, some people were taken from Africa and they spread out, South America and Brazil. So, you know, we're all, musically, we're all this stuff is related. So, you know, sooner or later you're going to figure this out or do some research and really see. I think it's really going to inform and bring to life what it is you're doing. So, you know, I'd like to wrap up. Do we have any more questions?
You want to do the photos or no? You don't have to.
Yeah, it's not really necessary, but yeah, I really appreciate everyone. I appreciate, you know, Matt taking the time and having me out here, and I just want to thank some of the companies that have supported me. Of course, wonderful Paiste Cymbals. I'm so happy to have my friend Tim Shaady here from Paiste. I just adore these. These are, as my friend Greg Burrows said, you know, these aren't just cymbals; they're musical instruments, and I really agree. And I've been with proud Paiste artists for you know, geez, I think since 1994, almost as long with Vader sticks. Also, you know, wonderful Remo heads. You know, I decided to become a Remo artist. You know, I don't know, 15 years ago or so. But I've been playing Remo since I'm a baby. Also, these in-ear monitors I'm wearing, Etymotic Research in-ear monitors. I also use their earplugs. Protect my ears. Please protect your ears. Don't, if you're young, whatever, protect your ears. Protect your ears. If you don't have ears, you're useless.
Can you say that again, John, please? I can't hear you.
Yeah, exactly. And also, Drum Tax is a wonderful product. Look them up, Drum Tax. A fantastic system for muting the drums. And it doesn't get all full of dust and whatnot. It makes your drums sound beautiful. So anyway, this is Matt assured me this is going to be recorded. Anyone that's in New Jersey, I'm going to be playing with Badass Beauty on Friday, 10:30, one set at Roxy and Duke's. Okay, it's a cool little club in Donnellon, New Jersey. And I have a website. You know, I always post my gigs. It's Jon Berger Drums, plural, JONBERGER drums, DRUMS.com. And I usually post different gigs that I'm doing. I hope to see you out there, and yeah.
So John, could I come to the gig or what?
Absolutely.
I live right down the street here, you know? Anyway, I'd like to really thank you so much, John, for taking out the time and expressing your love for the instrument and helping people and sharing with the people. I think your presentation here today was extremely magnificent.
Thank you.
There was no ego, there was just straight ahead knowledge.
Thank you.
And I think that you got some really good responses here in the chat.
Excellent.
And I'm really happy that you did this for not just me, but for everybody in the community. And like John did say, if you want to come back and revisit this particular stream, I will present it to you, present it to YouTube as the stream today's date as Jon Berger, but it's going to be recorded, okay? And I'd just like to know the students that are here today, the frequent ones that come, my next stream will be Monday at 1 p.m. on YouTube. Now also I'd like to also thank my groups from the Art of Drumming on Facebook. There's about 12 different groups. They're supporting this. And my online lessons site, mattpatellaslivelessons.com. So I hope this has helped everybody. I'm sure it has. And I hope everybody has really enjoyed this and will benefit by this, because I know I did, as many years as I've been playing. John is a magnificent player, well-rounded, great educator. Thank you so very much, John.
Thank you, Matt. And yeah, keep on playing, never give up.
Anybody else here want to say anything?
Just appreciate the time also for coming down and giving us some good insight on what's going on.
Yeah.
Especially out there in that Broadway field. Enough guys don't get the opportunity to hear some insight like that, you know.
What I enjoyed the most here is your versatility, John. I thought I was listening to a rock drum, and all of a sudden you're playing Latin. And then from Latin you're playing rock. I said, whoa, and then marching. I said, well, the versatility, that's the name of the stream today, beyond timekeeping, and how well-rounded you are. And I think that comes from not only your experiences, but your foundation, your basic educational achievements.
Yeah, I want to piggyback that and just say, again, I appreciate all the people that I know. Sure, Matt feels the same way. There's a huge amount of people that belong to the Art of Drumming Facebook page. If you don't, please join. It's a wonderful community. Art of Drum Solo, Art of Drumming, Drum Tuning and Maintenance. Get a lot of great information there. Sharing information, sharing ideas. Yeah, it's it's an ongoing process, and people get frustrated. We all do. I get frustrated myself all the time, as long as I've been playing. There's things I can't do, things I can't execute, or times where I feel like I don't have opportunities to play creatively. But you have to just keep on going. And the most important thing I want to stress is joy is important, but playing with humans. Okay, it's fantastic to sit in your room and practice drum solos and post drum covers. That's fantastic. But ultimately, it's about people. Playing with people. That's the most important thing. So even if you have one musician, a guitar player, bass player, it doesn't matter. Make a regular effort. Get out of the practice room and apply what you're doing. Play music. Throw all the rules out the window and just play music. And write. Make an effort to write music, to be creative. I think that's really key. Is that's why we play music. It's not just for ourselves. And things we're talking about and the questions we're asked about sort of the selfish behavior that some have, it's because they spend too much time developing chops. I mean, to what end? It's important, and it's a great thing to have that vocabulary, but it's got to always be balanced with music, and also balanced with having a conversation. Learning to sit in a room with someone you don't know, say, hi, how are you? I'm fine, and then bounce it back and forth and develop something. Be amazed, some of the greatest groups in the world have developed this way. Led Zeppelin, you listen to the history of Led Zeppelin, those guys got in the room for the first time, and it was just instant magic. Police, the same thing. And you never know. You just find that one person, and it could even be a duo. Suddenly you have this amazing experience you never had, and you realize you have something to express, even though you can barely play the instrument. That's the bottom line. So please continually play with other musicians. Whether you're a school student, a professional, whatever it is, get out of that practice room you know, and balance your chops and your study with playing live music. And yeah.
Well, thank you very much again, John. Before closing, I mean, I want to say that I've learned so much today from your versatility, and now you inspired me to throw everybody out of here and practice.
Wow. Awesome.
Okay, John, you want to just give me your website again?
Yeah, it's jonbergerdrums.com. No H in John. JonBergerdrums.com. All lowercase.
Okay, so that's good enough now. All right, once again,